to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. So we're going through this interesting article of La Stampa of the 21st of January. Last October, the state prosecutor of Trani, Italy, Michele Ruggiero, put out a request to the U.S. Department of Justice. I want to talk to Shapiro of the SEC, Harrington, Moody's, Krugman, Princeton economist, and Tarpley. And the answer was no. We're not going to help you because you want to put opinions on trial. Interesting that, as far as I know, from my own case, the Department of Justice never told me about this, right? The U.S. authorities never informed me about it. So we'll have to see what to do there. And I try to find out whether others have also been informed or not. Again, it's more than putting opinions on trial. You have a quasi-legal role, or what can we say? You are, in effect, an appendage or an annex of government activity. You have an officialized role in these things, and you cannot simply say, I've got the right to every opinion just like everybody else. Now, what else did Ruggiero want? He wanted the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Department of Justice to give him the information which is connected to investigations that they've done of Standard & Poor's, and this has got to do with the U.S. debt downgrade of last August and the crisis of the subprime mortgages, or as I would say, the world derivatives panic of September 2008. And the appeal that Ruggiero made was to say to the U.S. side, you guys believe in the market. So if you have somebody who's manipulating the market, then that is a legitimate object of investigation. This is interesting. The Italian word is aggiotaggio, market manipulation, market rigging. And that seems to be one of the possible complaints, one of the counts of a future indictment, or actually there already are, I think, some kind of indictments in this case. So Ruggiero had pointed out that in 2001 the agencies did not predict the collapse of Enron. In 2007 they considered these derivatives basically as low risk until the last moment. With Lehman Brothers, they were still giving AAA until the very eve of the crash, until a couple of days before the crash. From the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Italian investigators wanted news on possible complaints that had been lodged by various people concerning the two ratings agencies. And are these agencies controlled by investors that have potential conflicts of interest? In other words, if I'm the majority stockholder of McGraw-Hill, which owns S&P, if I'm going to lose money on a certain deal, do I put the pressure on? And what they found, of course, is that the internal emails of these ratings agencies, there were a lot of stuff about how can we make more money on this deal? How can we get more clients? How can we please these people? Remember that Ruggiero is operating based on complaints that were made by Italian interest in the Federconsumatori, Federation of Consumers, one of the organizations that put this in. So, needless to say, we'll have a lot about this in the coming days and weeks. Now, just to get a quick orientation, where are we in the destabilization and mass strike process? Because we have all of this going on right now. Remember then back in 1848, 1849, which is our general way to start thinking, not stop thinking, but start thinking. We had very early in February and March, we had the fall of Louis Philippe of France, right? The Orleanist king fell and fled to London, and then we had Metternich of Vienna fled to London, and by March, a war had broken out with the Kingdom of Sardinia, Piedmont, Turin, attacking the Austrians in northern Italy. The turning point was then the events in Prague, but above all, the Paris June days, right, when you had this massacre of the working people of Paris by the wealthy interest in the army that they controlled. And then we had the Radetzky, the Austrian general, and Windischgrätz, who were able to defeat the Italians and the Czechs and to some extent the Hungarians. But then in early 1849, it started again. And one of the things we have is Mazzini's Roman Republic, the assassination of Pellegrino Rossi. And we know who did this. This was done by Cicero of Trastevere, who was an agent of Lord Minto of the British Foreign Office. But the idea was to drive out the Pope, Pius IX, which they did. He fled to Naples. And we had this radical atheist, what can we say, Roman Republic of the British agent Mazzini and a couple of his cohorts, and they were eventually driven out by a French army. In the beginning of 1849, it looked like the whole thing was starting anew, but it was not. The Sardinians were again defeated. This is Novara in March 1849. The Russians send troops into Hungary and crush Kossuth and his radical Hungarian operation in August of 1849. You've also got the collapse of the Frankfurt Assembly in Germany in the late summer of 1849. So that's where this stuff tends to break down. So it seems to me we're proceeding more or less along this kind of a time frame. But now, remember, Bismarck's judgment of all of this in retrospect, and I'd like to apply Bismarck's comments to the Occupy Wall Street. Bismarck said in one of his famous speeches, "The great issues of the day are not decided by speeches and majority votes. That was the great mistake of 1848-49. But," says Bismarck, "by blood and iron." And you can imagine a modern equivalent of Bismarck saying, in effect, the great issues of the day are not decided by general assemblies, consensus facilitators, and ad busters, but rather by something more serious, maybe nationalist colonels in Egypt or Pakistan. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.